Amy, let me tell you about a magical place that is so exactly designed to be enclosed space, year-round fun for the whole family that I bet you already know what I'm going to say before I even say the name. Let's say it together on 3. 1, 2, 3. Great Wolf Lodge. You got it, Amy.
My kids loved Great Wolf Lodge when we went. You probably already know that it has a huge indoor water park with a wave pool, lazy river, a bunch of massive water slides. But then your pack can hit the other attractions because wait, there's more.
Great Wolf Lodge has adventure-packed attractions like Magi Quest, a live-action game kids can play throughout the lodge, plus the Northern Lights Arcade. Spent some quality time there, so your kid who loves the lazy river and your kid who loves fantasy games will both have a great time.
Great Wolf Lodge also offers great dining options and complimentary daily events like nightly dance parties, all under one roof. Unpack the car once and you're settled in to have fun. And with 22 lodges across the country, you're always a short drive away from adventure.
We've both had such great times at Great Wolf Lodge, so bring your pack together at a lodge near you. Learn more at greatwolf.com and strengthen the pack. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Fresh Take from What Fresh Hell, laughing in the face of motherhood. This is Margaret.
And this is Amy. Today, we're talking to Fortesa Latifi. She is a journalist who has spent years reporting on influencers, kidfluencers, reality TV families, and the kids growing up inside all of it. Fortesa's work has been featured in Teen Vogue, Rolling Stone, The New York Times, The Washington Post, and more. Today, we'll be talking about Fortesa's new book, Like, Follow, Subscribe: Influencer Kids and the Cost of a Childhood Online. Welcome, Fortesa.
Hi, thank you for having me.
So you start the book where Amy and I both started our journey in the parenting space with kind of the OG mom bloggers. So take us to that time. For those who cannot cast their memories back that far, tell us about this era of the first of the mommy bloggers.
Well, it feels funny for me to be telling you guys about it since you were part of it.
We lived it.
Yeah. But I think the original mommy bloggers were really kind of fascinating because, I mean, as you all can attest to, you were writing these thousands of word essays, plundering the emotional depths of, you know, infertility and miscarriage and potty training and raising your kids. And it was really this interesting space and time on the internet because for a while it wasn't profitable. And so there was kind of this like preciousness to it because it was just for each other and for yourselves.
It was also extremely written word and not visual back in the day. I remember Margaret's blog, actually. Margaret had a blog called Short Fat Dictator back in the day, and it was very funny. And you would use sort of GIFs and things to make your points, never pictures of your kids.
Right.
And there was no such thing as Instagram Reels. So you could talk about your kids, give them funny names, whatever.
Yeah.
And the funny stories or the serious stories you would tell were completely with the power of the written word, not by bringing them on camera with you.
Yeah, totally. I think it was radically different from being a mom influencer specifically because, so much of it was written and it wasn't visual. And then, of course, monetization happened and then Instagram happened and everything changed. And, you know, as a mom myself now, and I became a mom in 2024, and I'm like, wow, I wish that I had those essays to read because it's just not the same. Like motherhood content is not the same.
Yeah. And even I think with blogging, and I found this as a blogger, that people who shared more of their lives tended to be more successful. Like there was a little bit of story. I mean, I come from television writing background and I was like, oh, here's something cute that happened this week. Okay, now here's something. But there wasn't a narrative and a through line. It wasn't like, well, my husband and I are having problems and I don't know if we'll stay together, or I'm having this very tricky pregnancy and how is it going to turn out? I think all of these mediums tend to reward story, which makes sense. Like, audiences want to feel attached to you and the story that is happening to you. And I, by staying in the kind of like, here's some cute, funny essays about me, I felt that thing of, oh, this would be going better if I was letting people more into my life.
Yeah, I mean, I feel that way even now. Like, I have to have a platform of some sort as a journalist, just because that's what being a journalist is in 2026.
Right.
I really struggle with how much to share about my own life. And I do think that if I shared more, my stuff would do much better. And maybe that would lead to selling more books. But then I'm kind of going down the path that I'm writing about. So it's kind of this really tricky thing.
It is a trap. And I think it's true. And you approach it this way. We tend to be like, these are bad, shallow people making selfish decisions. And that's not really how it happens. It happens much more organically than that.
I have my old blog posts. And so I became a parent in 2002. I was blogging by 2008 when I had 3 kids. Have the old posts and was thinking I put them into a book for my kids, and even looking at them again, like, I don't know if they'd find this so funny. And I was doing fake versions of my kids' names. There was a little bit of a lack of understanding of the permanence of it all, or the potential permanence of it all. And here I am saying, well, I took it down. Like, I think it's taken down. I don't know. You could probably find it if you wanted to. We weren't really thinking about how this would play when our kids were in their 20s thing at all. It just was, I'm sharing this with 100 friends. It's like a little snow globe of other moms reading it. Do you think that was short-sighted?
How could you have understood what the internet was going to become?
Right.
Like, I don't think it was short-sighted because I don't think anyone else was thinking any differently.
So you talk in the book about our fascination with family content. So what is family content? I think people kind of get it, but for people who are not super dialed into this world, what is family content?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it is just wildly mundane, which is really fascinating.
Yeah.
Like, it's just like, it's moms waking up and saying, get breakfast ready with me for my 4 kids. And it's just them, scrambling some eggs and getting lunches ready for the day. Or it's them like cleaning their house, or it's them taking their kids to doctor's appointments. Like, it's very mundane.
And are the families special in some way? Like, I'm thinking back to the early version of this was John plus Kate and 8. There were TV shows.
Yeah.
Or the Duggars, with their 35 children or whatever. Like, the family structure was remarkable. And then episode for episode, it would actually be they go to the dentist, and I don't know, quadruplets going to the dentist seems fine, actually. Do you need to have a twist for your family to be popular, or not necessarily?
No, you don't have to. I would say that a lot of times the more popular families do have more kids, but it's not like the 8 or 15 kids that the Goslins or the Duggars had, but it's more like 4 or 5, which I guess is like the 2026 version of like a lot of kids, because who can afford that many kids anymore? Or oftentimes it's like young parents. So parents who started having kids in their like late teens or early 20s, or it's religious families, or it's families who live on a farm. But it's not always that. Like, sometimes it's just, a family with just a couple of kids just living their normal kind of boring lives.
And you talk about the very original family, the Loud family, which was before any of our times. Was it a PBS documentary?
It was a PBS documentary, and it was really the first kind of reality show. And it was just a family in Santa Barbara. They had 4 kids. They were middle class. There was nothing really remarkable about them, but people couldn't look away. And I don't think we've looked away since then.
Yeah. And you talk about the Kardashians being kind of part of that legacy, that we've always had families that fascinate us. It's interesting to me because when I watch the Kardashians, I think everything happens to these people. I mean, their content, talk about writing a soap opera. You could never write as many interesting things as have happened to that family. So in that example, it feels like the remarkable things that happen to them beyond being famous, being robbed, the father coming out as trans, the boyfriend cheating with the best friend. I mean, just the amount of things that have happened to them. Is that the new model, whereas the Loud family was just, we're happy to watch anybody, or does it seem all of a piece?
I think the Kardashians are an exception just from how strange their lives are. I mean, partly due to the money and the extreme fame. But when it comes to like family vloggers, like these are just regular, like normal families. But I think there's something about us as people that we want to see how other families live. Like, I will scroll on TikTok and watch a mom make dinner for her kids, and it's like not interesting, but I can't look
Why
away.
is it interesting?
I don't know.
But I'm with you, right? It's fascinating. I think especially you're onto something with the numbers. Like when they have the 20 pieces of bread out and they're making sandwiches, you're like, wow, maybe it makes me feel a little bit better.
I think it makes you feel either like you can compare yourself and you can feel better, or you can feel worse. And either way, you're having this reaction. Like sometimes I'll watch other moms and they have more kids than me. I have one and I'm pregnant with my second. And I like have never made sourdough from scratch in my entire life. And,
Right.
I'm watching a mom who has 6 kids and makes everything, including baby food, from scratch. And I feel really bad. And then I scroll and I see a parent who's giving their 3-year-old soda. And then I feel really good. And,
Right.
like it's either way, I'm comparing myself.
So like back in our day, we would have started these WordPress blogs. Both of us, Margaret and I, were each separately creative people, not working in the same way we used to. And this was a creative outlet for us. And it was a way to reach out and find a small audience. And it seems to me like, okay, so these days, if you're putting reels of yourself making breakfast for your unremarkable family, are you trying to start a small side business, or are you really just trying to connect and be seen? Because I look at it as like, why would you ever put your family out there? Is the gesture more simple than that? It's both?
I think it's both. I think that motherhood, obviously, as you both know, is incredibly isolating. And so you're sitting there and you're alone and you're with your baby and your children all day. And you're like, no one sees me. And so you're like, okay, let me make a reel or let me make a TikTok and put it online. And hey, if I hit the viral lottery and become a mom influencer, maybe I can buy $1 million house and my husband can quit his job. And what's the downside?
I think that's right. You get over the loneliness. I mean, we all have that instinct to be like, look at this picture of my baby who looks adorable. Everybody feels that. One of the things you hit on early in the book is the transfer from the mommy bloggers to the sort of more Instagram or family vloggers, that it's marked by a switch in focus from the mom to the kids. And that seems to be kind of at the crux of almost why you're writing this book, that shift to following kids seems worse, I guess, than just moms talking about their own lives.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's up to each person to decide if they think that it's better or worse, but I definitely think it raises more questions about privacy and consent, because when you're writing about your experience of motherhood, that's one thing, but when you're sharing everything about your children, that's another thing.
Right, and it quickly becomes a job for the whole family. There are obviously YouTubers. You talk about the Family Fun Pack, 15 billion views. I mean, this is their life. They're making a tremendous amount of money with this endeavor.
That's right. And even when it goes really south, like Ruby Frankie and her family vlog, what were they called? 8 Passengers, I believe.
Yeah, 8 Passengers.
And that went, there's Netflix documentaries about what happened there. And it was terrible. Those kids were abused. But what content, right? And then we participate in watching the content about that and going back and trying to find stuff. And it's the infamy is rewarding to everybody except the kids.
Absolutely.
And then I sort of feel bad for participating in it. But when does it move from, there's an influencer I follow online who has a really super, super cute baby. She just does. Like, we all think we have a cute baby. This woman has a really cute baby. And it's just pictures of her with, it's just her and her baby, right? And I love it. And my phone shows me this. What's the harm in that? And then, maybe there is no harm in that. And maybe there's terrible harm in that. And when you cross that line, seems very hard to discern in the moment.
I think that's totally right. And I think a point that I tried to make in the book and that I want to make here is that I don't think that every parent who posts their child online is evil or immoral or a bad parent. I just don't think that. And I think that squashing this topic into something that's so black and white doesn't serve anyone. I have family vloggers and mom influencers that I follow that I'm like, oh my God, I love their kids. They're so cute. Like, I'm not immune to this, and I don't think anyone really is.
But I think, as we often try to do on the podcast, it's like your mileage may vary. This may have good outcomes or bad outcomes, but it's important to go in aware of the full story. So we're going to take a break and we're going to come back and discuss some of the dangers in family blogging. We'll be right back.
Hellions, it's time for some spring cleaning, and I don't just mean the coat closets. Doing your financial spring cleaning can actually be super easy when you let Monarch do your financial spring cleaning for you. One dashboard that gets your entire financial life organized. No more clutter, no more mess, no more logins scattered everywhere, just accounts, investments, property, and more, all in one place. Get your first year of Monarch for half off, just $50 with promo code FRESH. Monarch allows you to look not only at what you've already spent, but also to plan for the future. With Monarch, you can set savings goals, plan for big purchases, and notice spending trends before they become a problem. I can generate cash flow reports that show me what we spent this quarter, this month, what we're probably going to spend next month, and feel prepared, organized, and knowing how to plan for the future. No more surprises and a lot more clarity. Try Monarch. Use code FRESH at monarch.com to get your first year half off at just $50. That's 50% off your first year at monarch.com with code FRESH. My favorite skincare products actually feel more like self-care, like they're so nice to put on and they smell so good that I'm actually happy when I get to that part of my day. And I swear that is how I feel about Osea's anti-aging body balm.
Amy, you are usually the lotions and potions queen on this podcast, but I have to say, hard agree.
Osea's anti-aging body balm is a liquid silk body balm that combines the lasting hydration of a lotion with the firming power of a serum, leaving skin smoother and firmer.
This body balm is clinically tested and designed to deliver visible results you can see and feel.
So we've gotten to use this product for a couple of months now, and I swear I have really noticed firmer and smoother skin, like on the back of my hands. It's like getting a mini spa treatment from head to toe.
Get a spring-worthy glow with clean, clinically tested skincare from Osea. And right now, we have a special discount just for our listeners.
Get 10% off your first order site-wide with code FRESH at OseaMalibu.com.
That's 10% off your first order with code FRESH at OSEAMalibu.com. Amy, when I'm having a good hair day, it usually makes my whole day better. And that's why on every day, I'm taking Nutrafol.
Nutrafol is the #1 dermatologist-recommended hair growth supplement brand, and it's the #1 hair growth supplement brand personally used by dermatologists. Nutrafol's hair growth supplements are peer-reviewed, NSF certified for sport, and clinically tested.
Nutrafol offers multiple formulas for men and women, tailored to different life stages and lifestyle factors, so you get support that's actually right for you. Adding Nutrafol to your daily routine is easy. Order online, no prescription needed, with automated deliveries and free shipping to keep you on track.
Let your hair be one less thing to worry about. See visibly thicker, stronger, faster-growing hair in 3 to 6 months with Nutrafol.
For a limited time, Nutrafol is offering our listeners $10 off your first month subscription and free shipping when you visit Nutrafol.com and enter promo code LAUGHING.
That's Nutrafol.com, spelled Nutrafol.com, promo code LAUGHING.
So you quote in the book Bridie Hamilton talking about the 8 dangers of family vlogging, for lack of a better term, for putting kids online. Is that right?
Yes.
And she talks about unwanted attention from invisible audiences, which is, like Amy said, you're putting stuff out there. You don't know where the internet's going. You don't know how big this is going to get.
Yeah.
And you don't really have a ton of control.
No, I mean, anyone who's ever posted anything on the internet, you don't know where it's going to end up. You don't know how big it's going to get. You don't know who's going to take it which way. I mean, it's so complicated.
She talks about risks to personal safety, loss of control over personal information, stigma, which is a big one. I mean, you know, I don't think I've ever taken down my blog, but definitely one of my middle schoolers' friends found it at some point.
Tell me about that.
They didn't care that much because I really didn't write that much about them. But, it's stories about you from, I mean, it was mitigated by the fact that the blog was very small and I didn't really talk about my kids that much. But it did surprise me the day it happened. Like, we're already there where your friends are reading stuff that I wrote in the late 2000s about you. It just really was surprising.
Right.
And then also on this list, psychological consequences, reputational damage, loss of discretion, and the big category, number 8, unknowable harms. And that's the question that Amy asked, right? Like, was I wrong?
Yeah.
And I have been always a little bit snooty about people who are like, I don't ever put my kids on Facebook or the internet. And I'm like, calm down. Your kid's not that interesting. Like,
yeah.
I mean, all of my kids had YouTube channels at one point when they were little because they thought they were going to be, who's the kid you talk about in the book, Ryan's World. And like 2 people watched them and then they stopped doing it. I'm a little bit like, we live in an age where people can see your kids on the street or can see them on Facebook, and there's not that big a difference. But it is different when your kids are characters in a television show that someone's watching. So talk a little bit about your research into the downsides of this.
Just from talking to kid influencers, both for this book and for my previous work, it can be incredibly intense. I mean, I talked to a young woman who her first menstrual cycle was made into a brand deal. And that's like not that uncommon. Like in the research of this book, I found many such cases of first menstrual cycles being turned into content. And it's just like, you think about how difficult it already is to grow up and to be going through puberty and into adolescence. And then you think about what if your parent was putting everything about those milestones online. I mean, I just can't imagine how I would have felt as a teenager.
And what is that? Like, I guess I'm coming back to this idea of like, there's a line that you'll cross at some point. Clearly, you monetizing that and invading your child's privacy has crossed that line. But for probably $150. So what is it that when you get that line?
Well, I don't know. I mean, some people are making like tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars off of brand deals, you know? So if you think about if a person has millions of followers and they can command $100,000 for a brand deal, I think you can say to yourself as a parent, okay, I'm going to make an ad out of my child's first menstrual cycle, but it's going to pay for half their college education, you know? So like, I don't know. I think it's easy to say like, oh, I could never make that trade. But then you think about what that trade actually means.
Right.
Well, and I think it happens really slowly. I've told the story on the podcast, but my son, through a very random set of events, was up for a role in a movie, like a big feature film.
A big part,
lead in a big feature film. I kind of was like, oh, this is funny and fun. It came about because we knew a casting director who was looking, doesn't your kid do gymnastics, blah, blah, blah. And then at a certain point, we were really into it. Like, okay, you're going to fly to Brazil and you're going to make all this money and college is going to be paid for. And then there was some discussion about he needed to be a certain age and he looked very young for his age. And someone said, oh, well, they can give them hormones to stop them from growing for a certain time. And it wasn't someone asking me to do it, but I was like, oh, this is how it happens. Like suddenly you've already spent the huge salary in your mind.
Yeah.
You've gotten everybody excited. We're all going to Brazil. And then stuff starts coming in that you're like, I'm already in this. I can't get out now. It's quicksand.
Yeah. I mean, it's sunk cost fallacy, right?
That's exactly how we were talking about it, sunken cost fallacy. But I think that for a lot of people who are like, let me show you my cute baby. And then suddenly Amy's like, that baby is cute. And then 30,000 other people get on board and suddenly you're doing period brand deals and you've kind of lost it.
Yeah.
Well, how do the kids feel about this? Because I think we can see that it's a gray area, but did you interview kids for the book who were fine with things like their first menstrual cycle being used for content?
Yeah. You know, I think that's what makes it so interesting is that it's not that every single child influencer grows up and hates their parents and hates that they were online. And there were kids that I talked to for the book who said, I love being a YouTube star. And when I grow up, I want to do my own family content. And, you know, the dream of so many young people is to become a YouTube star. And so for some of these kids, they're like, well, I was born into it. And like, how lucky am I? I think it has to probably do with the personality of the children, because some children were like, this is my nightmare. I hate being online. I wish that none of these billions of views existed. And others were like, yeah, when I grow up, I'm going to make my own family content.
And you also talk about some of the real downsides. And unlike, I think, I mean, Amy and I both were in Hollywood for a long time, and Amy was on sitcoms and saw a lot of little kids come through. It's like those parents have kind of already chosen the path of like, we are trying to become famous on TV by going to this series of auditions. It struck me in the book that some of these people start making content and it leads to this huge life that it wasn't quite the same as like, we're going to get your headshots done and buy all these outfits and go out and try to make you a big star. It's like, well, we were just documenting our lives and now suddenly everyone knows you and you're famous. You talk about people like Ryan's World. They're making tremendous amounts of money.
Yeah.
it can be challenging. There's a whole section about like what happens when the music stops, right? And talk about some of the people like Colleen Ballinger and the Stauffer family when this fame really turns on them.
Yeah, I think it can be really difficult to go from being this like incredibly important person who all hundreds of thousands or even millions of people are paying attention to, and you're making money hand over fist. And, you know, you're making more on one sponsored post than most Americans do in their yearly salary. And then this fame, it's fickle and it doesn't last forever. And sometimes it's because of a controversy or something truly problematic or terrible, even like in Ruby Franke's case. Or sometimes, you know, you just fall out of fashion. And it was interesting because I talked to one parent, one family vlogging parent who used to be the head of a massively popular channel, and it fell apart. And they said that their kids had no idea how to function in the real world. Like they had grown up being bribed with like $100 or even $1,000 to do a 40-second video. And so then when the fame ended and they had to go and get actual jobs, the kids were like, you think I'm going to work for $15 an hour? Are you insane? And I was like, I don't blame them. Like, how could you go? Like,
their hands are too soft.
You know, I would think about the money that these teenagers were making. And then I would think about when I was in high school and college, I worked at Jamba Juice, like making smoothies. And I would think about how many hundreds of hours it would take me to make $1,000. Whereas these kids were just like, their parents would hand them $1,000 for doing a video. So it's like, how do you go back to a normal life? Because you've never really had a normal life.
It seems to me another issue with this, when you really become a large influencer. I'm thinking about Micah and James Stauffer. There's a whole Netflix documentary about them too. You start to see people with very large followings like this start to make decisions that are in the interest of the content. So they adopted a child from China because isn't that an interesting thing to be vlogging about, right? I mean, maybe it was driven by the goodness of their hearts, but it was like, look how we are the most wonderful people alive, and we're bringing home this child, and we're giving this child a chance. And then all of a sudden, then they tried to be private about it. There were challenges with this child being in the home with their other kids. And then they tried to like, you know, ghost on the kid. And of course, their millions of viewers were like, where's Huxley? Where's this kid? They had to basically give him back to the adoption agency. And it just seemed, again, terrible for all the kids. And also, like, at what point in the decision did you start doing it for the gram, as they say, and not because it was right for your family to add another kid? It just seems like that's like a huge downside to this as your following grows.
Yeah, I think it can be really difficult and complicated to consider what are you doing for yourself and for your family, and what are you doing for the content? Because I think about how Nora Ephron said, you know, everything is copy, but like everything is content now.
And you also discussed the kind of parasocial relationships that are inherent to this kind of work. So talk a little bit about that aspect of it.
I mean, people get incredibly emotionally attached to these creators, and especially to the children at the center of it. And I think it's normal in a way. You know, Amy, you just said that you watch this one creator and that their daughter is so cute. And like, I think that's normal in a way. And oftentimes, like, we're getting so much of their lives that like we know their favorite color, we know what sports they play, we know what they like and what they dislike and what they're afraid of. And so it's like, of course, you're having this like emotional connection to them. But it's really fascinating to me because the lengths and the depths of the parasocial relationship can, I mean, I didn't know how deep it went. And then one of the things that made me realize it was that many influencers are now taking their kids offline kind of as the culture shifts. And oftentimes people are devastated when these influencers make that choice, because they're like, well, how are you going to take this child from me? Like, I've become attached to them and like, I love them and I really feel for them. And these parents that I talked to who took their kids offline and had this intense parasocial backlash said, this is what showed me that I made the right decision.
Yeah, that it was the right decision. You also talk about an article that we discussed on the podcast from the New York Times, a marketplace of girl influencers managed by moms and stalked by men. And this was a shocking article. So for people who don't remember, remind us about that article.
I mean, it was devastating. It was the New York Times did this years-long investigation where they got into these self-proclaimed pedophile chat rooms. And inside the chat rooms, the people were cheering about the influx of content from mom influencers and kid influencers and saying like, you know, thank God we have this because we don't have to look for other stuff.
And again, it's like, will you just send me one more picture? It was like a little bit at a time. And you can stand outside it saying, I would never do something like that.
Yeah.
But it seemed like nobody got into it, these mom influencers or the teenagers realizing where they were going to end up. And all of a sudden they were being blackmailed and they couldn't stop. And it seemed pretty dark.
Yeah, I don't think that was the plan for any of them. But I think one of the moms in the story says that you kind of become desensitized to the amount of messages that you get in that regard, which is just like an astonishing thing to say.
Yeah. But also making the parallel to our Hollywood experience, there's a studio and security and PR people, and there are tutors on set. And there's just a lot that's developed over the course of the years that is about protecting child stars. You could argue about how well it's working, but these people are just regular people picking up a phone. They don't have security teams. They don't have ways to deal with stalkers or the kind of things that the studios, at least, they got an ex-FBI guy somewhere in there who's reading those letters and assessing them.
Right.
These people are just completely regular people with no protections at all.
Yeah, my husband works in the industry. We live in LA, and that's something that he talks to me about is he's like, when a kid is on set, you have like a bunch of like handlers, and you have the teacher, and you have the babysitter, and you have, this person has to make sure that they only work a set amount of hours in a day, and this person makes sure that they have a certain number of breaks, and this person's in charge of their Coogan account. And like, yeah, for influencer kids, there's none of that.
We're going to take a break, and I think we should talk about that and the laws around family influencers, and we'll be right back.
K-pop Demon Hunters Haja Boys breakfast meal and Huntrix meal have just dropped at McDonald's. They're calling this a battle for the fans. What do you say to that, Rumi?
It's not a battle. So glad the Saja Boys could take breakfast and give our meal the rest of the day.
It is an honor to share.
No, it's our honor.
It is our larger honor.
No, really. Stop.
You can really feel the respect in this battle. Pick a meal to pick a side.
Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
At participating McDonald's while supplies last.
Pepsi Prebiotic Cola in original and cherry vanilla. That Pepsi taste you love with no artificial sweeteners and 3 grams of prebiotic fiber. Pepsi Prebiotic Cola. Unbelievably Pepsi.
So before we get to the rules around family vlogging, I want to click on, because God knows it's in the news right now.
Yeah.
The Mormons. What is going on with the Mormons and influencing? It's just two great tastes that taste great together, I guess. Like, so many of these influencers come, and you have a lot of interesting information in the book about that I didn't know.
Yeah, that was one of my favorite chapters of the entire book, honestly, is about the Mormonism of it all, because I think what's so fascinating is that only 2% of Americans identify as members of the Church of Latter-day Saints or Mormons. And they are, most of the top influencers.
90% of influencers.
Yeah. And even like when you look at family vloggers, even if they're not like explicitly Mormon, once you go back in their content, they're like getting married at the Mormon temple. And so you're like, oh, you're Mormon too. Like, it's crazy how overrepresented they are in influencerdom.
And why is that?
There are so many reasons. One of the reasons is that there's really this premium placed on aesthetics and outward beauty in the Mormon church. It's really considered to be an expression of your godliness and your goodliness, to be beautiful.
It's a very old school, like long-haired, blonde white women with like a lot of curling iron stuff going on in their life.
And very thin, and they have a bunch of kids, but they don't look like it.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, totally. I know, it's like when you look at the Mormon influencers, like their hair extensions are just like so wild.
It's a lot of hair.
Yeah, it's a lot of hair.
But the Mormon church wants them to be putting themselves out there.
Yeah.
This real beautiful family, you can be like us. It's a positive example. Not a stigmatized, sort of a sidelined religion. No. We're just living our beautiful, beautiful lives, and you can live like us. Is that?
Yeah. And look how perfect our families are, and look how perfect we are. And like, don't you want to be like us? It's a really good example and commercial for Mormonism.
Yeah. And the Mormon church actually supports influencers, pays influencers.
Yes. This was when I found this out in the reporting of my book, I was literally astonished.
Yeah. I thought it was really shocking.
But it makes sense. I was asking one of the influencers who's been paid by the Mormon church, like, why do you think this is? And she was like, I was getting 1 million visitors to my blog a month. Like, what's more powerful, that or 2 missionaries going out and trying to talk to people?
Right.
The problem is, I think sometimes when you put your family's life online, you think you're showing one thing, you end up showing something pretty different. I'm thinking of Sister Wives, which is a TV show, not a vlog, but it's because now it's all vlogs, but 20 seasons of a TV show. And they were Mormon. They were polygamists, like splinter Mormons, and started the show with their kids to be like, look how great plural marriage is. Look how regular we are. Right. And that's not how it's turned out.
Isn't it only one of the marriages is still together?
Only one is still together. But I bring them up because the kids who grew up on the show that I watched, all the seasons of, and I don't know if I could name them all, but like, I know the kids, the grandkids, they all are now choosing, many of them, not all of them, many of them now grown in their 20s and 30s even, are choosing to establish their own online channels. Because I guess, why not? Because it's too late. I'm a public figure and I might as well be in charge of the money.
I mean, also, have you seen the job market?
Right.
Like, if you already have this kind of start of a platform, like, I mean, man, it's rough out there.
Good point.
And as you made the point earlier, you're used to making a living by filming yourself eating breakfast. Like, you don't want to go work at Jamba Juice.
No, I mean, yeah, who wants to clock in?
Yeah. The other thing that I think undergirds a lot of this, which is something we also talk a lot about on the podcast, is the way that so many female influencers are committed to making the labor seem invisible. Talk a little bit about how you discuss that in the book.
I really have difficulties with the way that motherhood and the labor of motherhood is presented online, because on one hand, it's this really, like, it just in general, the labor of motherhood is unseen and it's unpaid. And I think there is something valid in making that labor seen and making it paid. But also, a lot of times what I found out was that these women are, showing, oh, look at my perfect, beautiful house, look at my perfect, beautiful kids and my perfect, beautiful life. And secretly, they have a lot of help behind the scenes. They have full-time nannies, they have house managers, they have house cleaners, which I will make very explicit. I don't blame anyone for having help, and I don't think that's anything to be ashamed of. I have help, but I think selling a version of your life in which you're doing it all yourself and it's based on a lie, I think that's really problematic.
Right, because it gives everybody the feeling of like, well, she can make 8 loaves of sourdough while she has 6 kids and tend the lambs.
So what's wrong with me?
And I can't even get up in the morning and get my 2 kids to school with matching shoes on.
Exactly.
But you're not seeing the 8 people who might be helping find those shoes and line them up.
Right.
How is this affected, Fortesa, your own decisions about what you are going to share about your kids and their lives as they grow?
I'm still working my way through that, because I think I might be a little bit far on one side. I haven't posted my daughter online. She's almost 2. I don't really talk about her much. I try to, if I write about motherhood, I try to write about myself and not about her. I think that if the family influencers are on one side and I'm on the other side personally, I think we could probably find a happy medium. But I just my online presence is completely predicated on my career. Everything that I post online is about work. And I just don't want my daughter to be part of my job. And I don't know, there's just something there's this protectiveness that I can't really explain, that I just it's not that I have millions of followers, but I have tens of thousands. And why do people I don't know get to see my daughter? She's so precious to me. And I know all parents feel this way about their child, but I don't know. It's just a mental block that I can't get past.
The other thing that you talk about in the book, which we haven't discussed, is the rise of snark pages and Reddits that are about these people. And I think that started around television shows, but there's something different about being this person on Love Island is so annoying and they're a narcissist and they don't deserve any women, to putting your actual family's life online for that same audience who is treating it the same way I mean, this was happening back in our day. I was never famous enough to have a snark page, much to my sad. I would check Go Me and be like, did anyone say anything about me? No, they didn't care about me.
Go Me. Tell everybody what Go Me stood for.
Get off my internets. And Fortesa talks about them in the book. It's very much like you now have a second industry, which is the snark industry about the family vlogging industry. So talk about that binary universe and how damaging it can really be.
These snark pages they mostly exist on Reddit. So they're subreddits. And I mean, there are subreddits dedicated to snarking on family creators and mom influencers that have tens of thousands of followers. And all they do on those pages is talk about the creator that they supposedly hate. But what I find so fascinating about it is it's like almost exactly like fan behavior. Like it's almost indistinguishable from being like a rabid fan, except instead of talking about how much you love them, you're talking about how much you hate them. But there's this concept that I talk about in the book of the anti-fan, where it's basically exactly that. You're engaging in fan behavior, but not for love, but for hatred or for snarking. And it can be really emotionally damaging for people to see their snark pages. I mean, I can't imagine.
A whole page dedicated to, I mean, we occasionally will get like a mean comment on the podcast that it's like, hey, your forehead's weird. And I think about it all day. I can't imagine tens of thousands of people having this conversation. But it's another example, going back to Amy's, like, should I have mentioned my kids 20 years ago or whatever it was? Nobody thinks that there's going to be a snark page devoted to making fun of your 13-year-old. And in the same way, since like I saw a piece about Cary Grant recently, old time movie star. And he was like, oh, if I wear my sunglasses, they're like, look at him. He thinks he's so famous, he has to wear sunglasses. But if I don't wear them, they're like, look at him. He so wants to be photographed.
There's no way to win.
Yeah. And then there's an idea that you signed up for this. And the mean fans are part of it. I think you can somewhat make that argument with like Madonna. Maybe she chased it, got it, wanted it. But these are 15-year-old kids whose moms are filming them doing their homework, who now have a hate page dedicated to them.
It's unbelievable. And I think the sheer number of snark pages is really fascinating to me, because it's even like for creators who like arguably aren't that large. Like, okay, obviously there's one for like Ruby Frankie, right? Like she had millions of followers and she obviously became a huge news story. But I was looking at this mom influencer the other day who has like 250,000 followers on TikTok, which like relatively is not that many. And she has her own snark page with thousands of people on it. So it's like, you don't even have to be that big to have it.
It's those parasocial relationships.
What's your takeaway for Tessa in terms of consuming this content? Because not only do I consume Sister Wives content, I consume Sister Wives snark content because it's really fun. Does this make you reconsider participating in, I mean, it's hard to open your phone and not participate in a viewer of family vlogging content. What's your take on that, on us as viewers and participants in this pageant?
It's interesting because people often say to me, like, why is this content so popular? Like, it's so dumb, or like, it's so exploitative or whatever. And I'm like, well, it wouldn't be if we weren't watching it, you know? But,
right.
But again, that goes back to how fascinating families are, and we just can't look away. And so I think everyone has to draw their own line with like what they're comfortable with. And like for me personally, like I don't mind like looking at content of kids or like of families, but like something that I really feel a hard line on is if the children are in vulnerable positions, if they're in distress or they're having a tantrum or something really personal is being shown. So I think we all just have to like draw those boundaries for ourselves.
And it's also somewhere where the law has to evolve. And you talk about this in the book, that as you were saying, your husband was saying, Coogan laws and child labor laws. Tell us about some of the laws that are starting to enter this space as people are saying, maybe these kids are really working and there should be some protections around them. Because as of 5 years ago, it was total free for all. Like parents could spend all the money, parents could film them doing whatever. There were no protections.
So now there are 5 states that have laws pertaining to influencer kids. And all 5 of those laws are related to the profits that the influencer kids are taking in. So it's basically, the idea is kind of like the Coogan account in California for child actors, but it's very complicated to do that in the social media industry because these laws are like They're incredibly convoluted. It's like if the likeness of your child is in 30% of a video that is monetized at 1 cent per view, then 15% needs to be saved per blah, blah, blah.
Like in the book, it literally looks like a Goodwill Hunting, like beautiful mind equation that you have to solve.
Yeah. And it's like, I don't profess to know a better way to do it, but like, I think you would need a forensic accountant to do that. And it's like, it's not like you're doing that for one video a month, right? Like you're doing that, first of all, for a bunch of videos and a bunch of pieces of content every month, each of which are monetized separately, and each of which lives on a platform which is monetized differently than the other platform. So it's like, how do you keep up even if you want to?
Do you think there's consent laws that should be considered as well, instead of pay them now that the horse is out of the barn?
I mean, it's really difficult, especially in the US, because we so prize parental rights. And I think also parents are constantly making decisions for kids that they can't consent to. I mean, that's kind of just what being a parent and a child is. So I don't really even know what that would look like.
The book is called Like, Follow, Subscribe, Influencer Kids and the Cost of a Childhood Online by Fortesa Latifi. And Fortesa, tell our audience where else, I should say, the book is rich with lots of stories, lots of profiles of all sorts of different influencers and how they're doing it. It's a really fascinating book. Tell our listeners where they can find the book and where they can find more of your work.
You can buy the book anywhere that you buy books. It is everywhere, and it comes out on April 7th. And you can find me online anywhere at Hi Fortesa, HIFORTESA. And I'm in this industry too, in a way, and all I do is share content about it. So you can come look at that and have a parasocial relationship with me.
Hooray for parasocial relationships.
Yeah.
We'll put a link to Fortesa's Hi Fortesa and the book in the show notes for this episode as well. Fortesa, thank you for talking to us today.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks so much.
This Mother's Day, celebrate the woman who's been there through it all with Pandora Jewelry. Choose jewelry that reflects the love you share and the moments that matter most. Make it even more meaningful with engraving, a name, a date, or a message just for her. Because the best Mother's Day gift says more than I love you. It says, I see you. Find the perfect Mother's Day gift at your local Pandora store or tap the banner.